Yahoo and cockle-doodle-doo, it's your boy, Reddit Rooster. How you doing, my chicks? Today we got some more spicy r/Datinghell stories. This is a long one, and it's very intense. I was sort of kidnapped. Weirdest date you ever read. This happened about 5 years ago. I would like to preface what you are about to read by saying I would never agree to go on this date now. This recollection is too awful to keep to myself, so I thought I'd share this here. I met this guy on OkCupid. He was handsome, had an engaging personality, seemed to be self-sufficient, and had a photo in his profile indicating that he lived on a beautiful lakeside property. The only drawback was that he lived about 64 miles away. He asked me to join him to see a Major League Baseball game with him. He said he had tickets right behind home plate, a few rows in. I had only been to one other baseball game before in my life, so it excited me to go, and I also was excited to be on TV as well. So I threw caution to the wind and said I would join him. We continued to talk up until the day he was to come and pick me up. He seemed super decent. He arrives, he has a nice car, and seems okay. He was as handsome as I had expected. One thing I'd noticed is that a bunch of beer cans were lying on the floor of the passenger seat. I didn't know if some thoughtless neighbor person had placed them there or not. But I got in. I soon discovered where they were actually from. The guy and I were on our way. He said that he had a cooler in the back with beer and tiny wine bottles, and that I was welcome to help myself. I was rather certain this was illegal, and asked him about this. He said that he did it all the time, and that it's okay. I remember being in a stage of my life where everything was a bit chaotic, and I hadn't been doing that well. So I joined him with a tiny cheap bottle of Merlot. He had solo cups. So, now we drive past where he is from to another state to see the baseball game, about 109 miles. His driving seemed to be okay, the conversation was going well. We finally got to the stadium, and then he said that his boss had asked him if he could try to sell some extra tickets he had. I was sure this was called scalping. I felt very uneasy and embarrassed as he stood there as people entered the stadium. Eventually, he decided he couldn't sell the extras, and we went into the stadium. At this point, I was worried that perhaps he had lied about where our seats would be, and that we would have crappy ones. But to my pleasant surprise, the seats were just as expected. It was very exciting to be there and drink beers and eat hot dogs with him. After the game, he asked me if I would like to go to the casino with him. I had only been to a casino one other time. Gambling isn't my thing. I had thought, well, when in Rome, and so I agreed. We went to the casino, and this guy pulled out lots and lots of $100 bills and played at the blackjacks table. I played a few hands too. Then we went to the karaoke bar and danced while others sang very badly. We were laughing and having a great time. Then it was time to go. On the way back, I felt like he was too tired to drive all that way. Something I should have thought about before. I said, well, just drive me to your house, and I can stay there and we can rest. You can drive me home tomorrow morning. And this is where it gets fun. We drive to this house, not on a lake, with a lot of cars in the parking lot. I say, whose house is this? And he says, this is where I live right now. I live at the parents of one of my friends right now. Like, what? I'm like, what about the beach house? So we walk in. The house smells like cig smoke. Ugh. We go to this room. He tries to make out with me all night, but I won't sleep with him. He becomes irritated with me. Then, when morning comes, he says, oh, I have to go to work. I'm like, what? You're going to leave me? Here? He says, yes, I'll be back later. I have a really important job to do. Just stay in the room. And I'm like, I will probably get murdered. This is it. Say your prayers, self. This is what you get for living a fast life on the edge. So he leaves, and I hear other people waking up outside of the room, and I'm basically scared to death. So I stay in there, until I don't hear them anymore. I open the door and start looking around. I go in the kitchen and then onto the back patio. I call my mother and tell her that I'm stranded about 64 miles away. She is obviously very concerned. I tell her that he said he would come back to take me home. I was going to wait a bit before I asked her to come get me, or made other plans. So I'm sitting there on the back porch, nearly crying and cursing all of the bad decisions I'd made, when this old man, who sort of resembled Jed Clampett, stuck his head outside and asked me if I was okay. I said, yeah. He said, "Did he just leave you here when he gone to work?" And I said, yeah. I could tell that he felt sorry for me. He didn't seem like a threat. So Jed asked me if I wanted to get McDonald's with him and his son, who was coming over in the meantime. I decided to go with them, thinking at least I would have one last meal before this clan dismembers me. So his son came over. He was sort of handsome in a Freddie Mercury way. So Jed, Freddie, and I got in the car. Jed said that he had to go to the bank and didn't want us to go with him, and that Freddie and I were going to go pick out some paint at the Ace Hardware, because Freddie was going to paint his wrought iron patio furniture. I didn't really have a choice but to join Freddie. While in the store, Freddie said that he thought I was pretty. He said that I should give him a chance. I replied that I live very far away. So eventually, Jed finished up at the bank and we get in the car to go to McDonald's. We go into the restaurant and Jed buys me a meal. That was nice of him. And I thanked him. I had asked if they knew if the guy was back from work yet, because I needed to get home. They told me that we had to stop by Freddy's house first, and then we would head back home to see. So, we go to Freddy's house, and sure enough, he lives at a lakeside house. I said, "Hey, the guy said he lived at a lakeside house. Does he live with you?" Freddy said, "No, not no more." I didn't investigate further. He showed me the lawn furniture he was going to paint, and I complimented him on his choice. Then we are on our way back home, and Freddy turns around from the front seat and says, "I have bipolar." And, "Would you date someone with bipolar?" I didn't know what to say at that point. I made it seem like I was dating the guy right now and couldn't date him as well. So we get there, and I'm fuming at this point. I was so angry that he left me there like that, and didn't respond to my texts about when he would get back. He was there when we arrived. And so were two other young ladies. They both gave me the stank eye. I could immediately tell that one of them was probably banging the guy, and the other called Freddy her boyfriend. What's worse is that Jed's wife was there, and her and the guys were all acting so nice and hospitable to me. The girls were obviously very angry and upset that I was there. Freddy asked me to go in the garage and check out his motorcycle. So I did, obligingly, and also to get out of that kitchen. So I went out there and he showed me. He said that I was so pretty, and I shouldn't pay attention to his girlfriend. And anyway, so eventually the guy said, "About ready to go?" I'm thinking, yes, mother effer. So we are taking a huge truck, and apparently the two young ladies are accompanying us. They get the cooler ready, naturally. He asked if he could sit in the back seat with me. I think I cringed, "Yeah," and we are off. At this point, I finally realized that I would probably live. I would go on to hopefully never make as poor of a decision I had made in respect to this date. Well, about a block away from the house, the girl driving, the one who was Freddy's girlfriend, took a phone call. It was obvious that she was negotiating a Xanax drug deal. I was sitting in the back in disbelief. Now I know I probably shouldn't have been in disbelief, but this was just not my life at all. I'm a law-abiding professional person. I could not believe what hell I was nearly about to escape, and then someone makes a drug deal? On the way back I remained quiet, and the guy even had the nerve to ask me for a kiss. When we finally got on my driveway, I verbally scolded him for his behavior, and they left. I went into my room and thank God I was alright and called my mother. After that, I googled the baseball game and sure enough, I could see myself numerous times in the clip. I felt like a TV star. Wow, that was one hell of a story. If I would have been in that situation, I think I would have panicked a lot. I think I would have called the police or something, not to arrest someone, because no one actually did something that could be a real offense, but just to call the police and tell them, please get me home, I'm stranded here and I don't know how to get home, because being 64 miles away from home with strange people is very, very scary, and it sounds very, very disheartening. I'm so glad this girl made it out alive. I really do hope that she doesn't do this mistake again, because having a date with a guy that lives so far off, if you don't know him, that's a bit problematic in my mind. But I'm very glad that she finally became a TV star, so I think that makes it all okay, right?